Okay, I think we are good to get started. Is it absolutely mandatory that I should keep my video on? If not, I mean, the voice is fine, the slides would be fine. We can simply have some stories and a useful talk. So that's me. Someone says, yeah. So okay. So first of all, I'm glad that after several years, I have an opportunity to address students of Geetam. Um, I'm lucky that I am in the capacity of being an entrepreneur, and I have this opportunity to address the students once again. Um, so just to introduce myself, my name is Vinay Chaganti. I finished my PhD from Geetam University, did my postdoctoral work from Osmania University. I was in the academic world for more than a decade, but before and after and throughout my tenure with the academics, I was constantly working with the industry. And to put my profile in one page, probably I can put it like this. I was with the industry, and I had one adventurous stint as an entrepreneur with a company that I established. It was called Benza Consulting. And then I was happy as an employee working for several organizations for a fairly long time, more than 14 years now. And for the last 1.5 years, I have become an entrepreneur again with Binder Technologies. And my route to entrepreneurship the second time is slightly unconventional compared to how most people become entrepreneurs. I will share that story with you as we go along in this meeting. But just to give you a brief overview about what I'm currently doing at my company, Binder Technologies, we aspire to make an impact in how we learn. Given my academic background, that's what I always wanted to do. I could not leave education as a field, nor could I leave industry as an opportunity to make an impact. So the best of both worlds has come together in the realm of edtech. And over the last 1.5 year, edtech has really come to mainstream, and many companies around the world, many institutions around the world are paying very close attention. So I'm again very fortunate that I've got an opportunity in a happening industry. So the goal is to really make an impact. And again, during this conversation, sometime I would be telling you about some significant decisions that we made, which can sound stupid, counterintuitive, or very smart. But the judgment is all for you. We are still uh, taking the journey that we are taking. So my journey as entrepreneur is for the last. But what I will do is this talk is about entrepreneurship through my eyes and experience. So I will tell you some stories where I saw entrepreneurship in action. I am fairly certain that all of us see entrepreneurship around us every day. You go to a retail store, that guy is an entrepreneur at his own scale. He's setting up a small store and doing a business of his own. Or you might have come across someone who's an industrialist, leading a multi-million dollar business. That is also an entrepreneurship of a different scale. So I think it's easy to talk about entrepreneurship through the eyes first as we observe. And then I can tell you about entrepreneurship as an experience, because I think those two are very different. And in this talk, I think what I would like to do is share the difference and how I am actually navigating the difference myself. Right. So the first part of this talk is going to have 4 different stories where I was involved in different positions in these entrepreneurship stories. So I had close associations, but different lessons to take away. Now, anytime during this conversation, I really would like an opportunity for the participants to interact. So I think the chat will be open, the Q&A will be open. Feel free to just continue sending your chats or questions. Let the conversation be as active as possible. Feel free to ask absolutely anything. It can be about my experiences, my personal life, or it can be about, let's say, the businesses that I've worked with, or the businesses that I'm going to talk about now, or any question that you have about businesses that you might want to start. Um, and I'm again fairly certain that in your generation there are many bright young minds which have better sparks than we ever had. All right. One disclaimer is some of my views are going to be very, very unpopular. Uh, but you'll have to put up with me because, well, this is 1 hour that I'm getting a chance to talk to you. Probably I have something to learn from you at the end of it. So I'll be completely open in expressing my views and opinions and my experiences. I expect the same from you as well. So story number one, this is called Project Kitab, and it comes from one of the neighboring colleges of Geetam University, Vizag. There is a college, if some of you are aware, called Maharaj Vijayaram Gajapatraj College of Engineering. It is a part of the Mansas Trust. Mansas Trust was in news for unfortunately wrong reasons in the last 1.5 year. But here is a small story from the college that I had to share with you. Okay, so Project Kitab is a fabulous initiative, right? And the initiative is extremely simple. So to describe it in one line, the students of the college collect all the paper waste from the college, all the paper waste. So for example, the paper waste could include, let us say, your previous semester's lab record, or let us say maybe a textbook from 2 years ago that you're not using, or maybe some rough notebooks that you've carried for a semester and you're not really bothered about keeping it anymore. Two, let's say, question papers that you throw away, or whatever it is that you want to throw away. So the initiative was about collecting all the waste. After collecting all the waste, just sell it to someone. All the paper waste, there are paper recycling agencies which buy all the paper waste. So sell off all the paper waste. With whatever money comes, buy educational kits, and then give those educational kits to students in government schools around the region. All right. So it's a fairly simple initiative, but I think that it is a major story in my life, and the reason is the genesis of the project and the person who started it. So I'm not going to tell you more about the person, but you will understand the reason why. The genesis was, this project began at a time when the college did not have funding to support student initiatives. And I was just given the role of leading the student initiatives in the college when I was a professor, part of the administrative responsibility. And I knew that there was no budget to support student initiatives. And here comes a boy who says, "Sir, I want to discuss an idea with you." And I say, "Okay, fine. There is no harm in discussing ideas, but you must know that there is no financial support." And he says, "Absolutely fine. I'm not worried about finances. Let me just present this idea to you." And then he tells me the idea. The idea is very simple. I say, "Okay," but then my skepticism kicks in and I ask him this question: how much waste material do you think you can mobilize from the college, right? I mean, it's not going to be like you're getting 10 tons of waste so that you can sell it off and maybe fund 100 students from government school. It's not a lot. An easier option could be to just go ask the head of the institution to donate some amount and then buy educational kits. And he said, "No, I'm not doing this out of charity. I really want to mobilize waste and then convert it into something that is of value." I appreciated the kid. We went to the college principal. We took the necessary steps. The student came back and said, "Sir, I need some space to put all the waste." So I generously offered him, "You can put it in my cabin somewhere. You can put it near my staff room somewhere." And then he came back with an alarming news. He said, "Sir, your staff room won't be adequate." I said, "What? Staff room is not adequate? So maybe you can put it in the lab." He says, "Sir, lab is not adequate to put paper waste." And then I've asked him, "What waste are you talking about? Where is it currently dumped?" If so, I mean, is it so much that the staff room is not enough and the lab is not enough? He says, "Yes, sir. Currently, we have dumped it all behind a workshop." And we went there, the principal and myself, and we were astonished that there was really more than about 10 tons of waste there. And my surprise was because the turnaround time was very, very small. This kid barely talked to me 2 days ago about an idea, and he has placed some small bins in the department, and everybody was joking about how much waste he could collect. True skepticism, not completely unfair. But then I don't know how he did it till date. He has gathered more than 10 tons of waste, and the first iteration of Project Kitab, we funded close to 120 children or so, and these are books, textbooks, stationery, and so on. Now, the fun part is, while doing all this, I asked him why I was not seeing the name of the person on any of the materials. So, for example, even in the picture, you can see that there is something called From the Youth for the People. Now, that is like a student-run agency, student-run organization inside the college. But this was one student who talked to me who had no relation with this FYFP. And I asked him, how is it that your name is not coming through, but FYFP is coming through? And how is it that you have put a logo for Project Kitab? Now, I'm not sure if you guys recognize what that logo is. It's a logo of Sarva Siksha Abhiyan. So I asked him how he has put up a logo of Sarva Siksha Abhiyan. He says, sir, whatever it is to inspire people, I will do it. So he just took a logo, named it as Project Kitab, gave it to a social organization that has some volunteers to run the activity, has not taken 1% credit. And the best part about how he ran the entire initiative was that his name was never known to anybody. Um, Even till today, not many people remember who actually started this initiative. I am lucky to be among the few people who exactly knows who started this initiative. And I asked him, why are you not putting your name in front? What's wrong with it? I mean, most students would love to have their name in front of an initiative like that, put it on their resumes, make themselves more saleable to employers, that they have pulled off something as amazing as this. And he says, sir, his response was this, and I'm quoting, sir, if I put my name there, I know that my juniors would fight to put their name in place of mine. So I don't want to even create a placeholder to put anybody's name. I just want this to be a continuing exercise, and I'm not interested in my name. That's it. And to me, that was a supreme example of succession planning. Someone who stuck to the purpose much more than the credibility that the person was getting or the reputation that the person was getting. This to me is still the biggest lesson in my life that I have seen in person, that a person can put his purpose ahead of himself. And today, Project Kitab is giving educational kits to, I don't know, the last time I heard, someone told me that they've given kits to more than 900 children in the government schools around. And as you can see, this is probably an image that I've taken from the previous year. It's run by the student organization of the college, and no one still remembers the name of the person who started it. And he's still, even today, not interested in putting his name out. But he has done everything that it takes to make sure that the project is a hit. That's, to me, a good example of entrepreneurship, purpose above person. So I am getting a few questions, which I will answer at some point. Let me just finish up the stories first. The next story that I have is of an international project that I was part of. There is a university in the Philippines called the La Salle University. It's the largest private university in the Philippines region. Now, they began a project, and the project was to make the student experience technologically seamless on the campus. So they named the project as Bituin, and there were several companies which came in to transform the entire university's IT infrastructure to create the most desirable technology experience for students. I'm sure Geetham, with its CATS department, is also doing something like that. The last time I was at Geetham, for an LMS, they had something called as XLearn. I think that it has now become GLearn or Geetham Learn or something like that. Now, implementing technology is not by any means a small effort. It's a large scale effort. I mean, you cannot change IT overnight. And unfortunately, although many people imagine that technology is too easy to achieve, well, yes, in a way, technology is easy to achieve, but achieving the fit between technology and people is very, very hard, right? Now, this particular university has invested several millions of dollars and has got best of the best companies from around the world. There were American companies, there were European companies, there were companies from Australia. There was myself there representing an Indian company, and we were all expected to provide one seamless solution for the university. And the original project timeline of the university was that the entire project would be finished in 3 months, which we thought was anyway a very unrealistic timeline. But we felt, okay, 3 months might be stretched up to 1 year. But you know what? 3 months didn't get stretched to 1 year, but 3 months got stretched to 3 years. And one way of looking at it as an outsider is, wow, that's a gross project management failure, right? How can 3 months plan be so grossly wrong that it is stretched by 3 years and the project is still going on? But I can tell you as an insider that this is not a project management failure. Instead, it is the prioritization of the management. What the management of the university knew clearly was that when they implement so much information technology, seamless experience created for the students, there were also several people who were losing jobs, who were about to lose jobs. Oh, by the way, I didn't notice, I'm also in this picture in the background. There were several people losing jobs. Now, the university wanted to make sure that any person who was about to lose the job had found another opportunity inside the university or outside the university. They wanted to make sure that the transition is complete only when all people are happy with the change, all people. And there is no exception to that rule. And I'll tell you the examples also. There were days when we would start at 7 o'clock in the morning to discuss the solutioning of the technology. We would go up to 11 o'clock in the night. And just when the entire team is about to sign off, there may be one particular staff from some administrative department raising one question. And it might be a question relating to some exception of a process, just one question. The entire procedure would stop because there is still someone who is unhappy or unclear about exactly how the change happens. This to me is another eye-opening experience in terms of how people can be prioritized over profits. And the university is extremely clear in its values that it would want all its people to be happy, upskilled, transitioned into more relevant roles. They didn't want to cut jobs at all, which I am sure most management textbooks will tell you as if it's a normal step. I mean, you have grown too large, cut costs, reduce, shrink your size, become agile. Those are all principles that you will be taught. But despite knowing all the principles, I have seen that this is not just a part of the university culture. It's also part of the social fabric of Philippines, that they're very nice people, very hospitable. They prioritize fulfillment, contentment, and happiness over material gains. So that's my second example of how I've seen a top-class management. Wealthy could have taken any decision any way they wanted, but they have definitely prioritized people over profits. The project delay was just an administrative matter for them at the end. There is another company that I was very closely part of, and the two people that you are seeing on the left side photo are close friends also. One is Mr. Shashidhar, who was the CEO of SwipeSumo, and the other is Mr. Rakesh, who is the technology officer of SwipeSumo. And what you are seeing on that photo is their employees actually putting their pictures on the social media portal. And the employees have gone to the extent of complaining to the police that these two guys are cheaters, right? You might be wondering why I am sharing this story with you. I mean, about someone who is called a cheater. But I think you need to understand the context in which they were pushed to that kind of a corner. So let me tell you the business story here. What you are seeing in the second picture, the Visa card getting swiped, that's a gadget called Square. So if you guys are aware, when you walk into any retail store to make your purchases, at the end, when you move to the billing counter, there is a large device in which the cards would be swiped or tapped these days. Um, and and those devices had to be purchased from the bank. Now these guys, Rakesh and Seshi, who established this company Swipe Sumo, they thought that it is probably unfair on the retailers to be forced to buy those devices. So because they thought that it may be unfair for the retailers to be asked to buy those devices, which are expensive at that time, they said, okay, let's find an alternative. And they found this alternative, Square, a device that was already prevalent in the US markets. And they thought, okay, why not bring that particular device to the Indian market? And that's something that can be simply plugged into a smartphone, and payment processing via cards would become simple. I mean, the vision was so large that they thought they can put one device like that in all of our pockets as well. So that, you know what, if you had to take a payment from a friend, you could probably just plug in that device, swipe your friend's card, and maybe take payment. Maybe it's a radical idea, but I am talking about, something that is 10 years ago. 10 years ago, this kind of idea was radical. I mean, now payment card processing is very, very simple. But I'm talking about 10 years ago, a time when your tap or wireless payments were also not enabled at the time, right? Now they brought these devices, they established the business, they started seeing some competition. MSwipe was another company that was entering into the market at the same time with a similar idea. Big Basket was another company which tried giving those kinds of devices to their delivery executives so that cash on delivery or pay by card on delivery was also enabled at that time. But at the end of all the effort, they made the investment, they paid for the devices were going to come to India. And the business model was that let's just proliferate these devices, give these devices to retailers, then maybe we can charge them on a per transaction basis, whatever small amount to make money. They went into a scenario where on one fine day, they receive a letter from RBI saying that this particular device is not acceptable in the marketplace. That's it. One fine day, one simple letter from the RBI that says, the way you are processing card payments with these devices, this is unregulated market. The RBI doesn't recognize. You have to shut down your process. I don't know how many of you understand the gravity of that situation, but we are talking about a scenario where you have made all the investment, you have the technology, you have the hardware, you have the software, you have paid for everything. You're about to realize the benefits of that business. And you know that these days, most businesses don't start profiting immediately. These are businesses that take years to break even and then start making profits. I'm sure that most of you may be aware that Ola and Uber are also not yet profitable, despite being very successful businesses, right? Profitability is hard to achieve. While it is hard to achieve, just think of a scenario where the RBI, a regulatory body, comes and says, you know what, doesn't work. We don't allow you to operate. Unfortunately, they were pushed into a place where they had shortage of money. They were fighting against the business environment. They were not fighting against customers. They were not fighting against competition. They were fighting against regulation. Now, they wanted to pivot their business model into many different ways, but they did not know how because this investment was dead already, right? But again, these two guys persisted, they have pivoted, they've gone abroad, they managed to sort of produce value out of the software, but in the process, because of the hits that they had taken, they failed very badly in paying salaries, and they attracted a lot of flack from their employees. So much so that the employees have gone to the police station, made complaints that these guys are missing, not paying salaries. These guys were taken to the jail. All kinds of things happened, check bounce cases and all those things. But yeah, that's part of the journey of being an entrepreneur. You make decisions in anticipation of success, and then you end up fighting the environment. But like I said, I really admire the guys for how they have sailed through the challenges. It's not that it is a successful business, and it's not that these guys are reputable anymore in the market. Most people still consider them cheaters, but it's fine. They had a purpose. Their idea was radical at the time. They really wanted to make a difference. That's what matters on top of anything else. So purpose greater than environment. Again, another scenario where I want to talk about how someone is looking at customers being greater than environment. We looked at one kind of a challenge where the environment is challenging because the regulation is hitting you hard. But then this is an example of a scenario where the competition or the working mechanisms of the business environment are ridiculously hard, right? And I'm talking about the interior designs market. Now, you may be too young to be talking about interior designing or how the business of interior designing works, but ask your parents who have probably invested in a home, or if you have moved to a new home recently, you know the value of interior designing. Everybody makes an investment in a home. They want to make sure that they have good interiors, soothing environments, and so on, right? And if you're not aware already, there are interior works done with wood, there are interior works done with aluminum, there are interior works that come in all kinds of budgets, all kinds of materials, ranges, and so on. This guy that I'm talking about, AK Kitchen Concepts, is a guy who does extremely good work. In fact, he is a pioneer of the concept of doing interior designing with aluminum. And the challenges that he faces every day, because this is an unorganized market, is that he finds a labor, he trains the labor to learn the work, and then the labor leaves him to set up his own shop. Can you understand how difficult that is? It's like you're trying to set up an IT company, but people are coming because you're a good trainer, and then they are not working on any projects, but they take the training and leave, right? But this guy still continues to get business only because he has mastered the art of managing customers, working with customers, understanding the customer expectations, making money out of his knowledge than anything else, than absolutely anything else. Again, one guy that I have seen who prioritizes customers over the challenges that he sees in the environment, right? So those are some stories that I thought I had to share with you guys. The lesson that I have learned in the end, one framework, if I have to say, for entrepreneurship is that purpose is bigger than anything else. Do you as an entrepreneur identify with what is the purpose that you're working for? And that is bigger than people, that is bigger than customers. It is probably the thing that brings people who work for you, customers who work with you together. Environment and profits are on the fringes. Those happen all the time. Those are in the news, right? You see challenges, you see difficulties. Eventually you make profits or you make losses, but that's all part of the journey. But what defines a good entrepreneur or a bad entrepreneur is how deeply connected they are to their purpose, how deeply they identify themselves with their purpose. So that is the conclusion of my segment one. At this point, I think I will be taking some questions and answering those. I'm seeing that few people are raising their hands multiple times. So if there's anyone who wants to talk, if they want to have that opportunity, if you have that opportunity, please go ahead. But let me just take a look at the question. So I'm looking at question one asks me, how do you start a business with zero investment? That's a good point, right? Most people think that money is essential, investment is essential to start a business. What I have recognized in my journey is that money is one resource, it's not the only resource. The first resource for any business is you, your idea, what you can do. So don't think that every business will need, source money. There are guys who start real estate businesses just by doing deals on paper without having any money. There's a concept called credit line, right? If you go to people with valid business ideas, most people would be willing to give you upfront opportunity to take the resources that you want to start and then wait for money. So starting a business with zero investment, I don't see that as a constraint at all, right? But if you are looking at investment as a validation of your business idea, that's a wholly different discussion that we are having. Right now, when you see the market and you see news such as Byju's has raised $100 million, Vedantu has raised, $100 million, they have become a unicorn, decacorn, or stuff like that. That is because those businesses are not really looking at money as a resource now, but they are looking at money as a validation of how good their business idea is. They don't need money. They just gather money because the idea is so good, and then they keep it in the bank only for future acquisitions. What do you think anybody is going to do with, let us say, $20 billion sitting in the bank? If you can think of something, I'll be happy. But usually at that point, they're only thinking acquisitions. Someone is asking me, sir, coding can make entrepreneurship. Well, you can be a good coder and a bad entrepreneur, or you can be a good coder and a good entrepreneur. Those to me are two different ideas. Sir, I have ideas on cybersecurity, blockchain. Will Geetam support me? I think Geetam has a fantastic environment. There will be a number of students who will support you. Shanmukh is from your campus. Maybe you can use him for marketing also. But yeah, I mean, you will have adequate support from Geetam University. I'm nobody to say anything about that. Oyo, okay, the entrepreneur of Oyo is very young, but that's not a question. What do you think about beauty industry? Not just beauty industry, any industry will give you adequate opportunities to enter into the market and do something significant. And beauty industry is not different in any sense. So if you're asking me this question, if you have some ideas, I think you should simply go ahead and do something amazing. Cryptocurrency, what are your life-changing learnings? Okay, so I'm going to come to that part, maybe the life-changing learnings that I had. So we'll move to segment 2, and very quickly I'll talk about my journey with entrepreneurship. So I was an entrepreneur earlier. Like I said, 2007-8, I established a company called Ebenzer. Now, those were the days when I just finished education. I was high on energy, high on aspiration, and I wanted to do something very, very big. So I worked with a couple of companies, and I thought, now I know Six Sigma. Now I know business process engineering. I can simply take this knowledge and be in the market as a consultant. So I established a company. Right? I thought that was all that was needed to establish a company and run a business. Now it's a whole different story. I had some success. I had learned some lessons, but eventually I found out that I did not have the persistence to actually be in a role that did not give steady income, right? Entrepreneurship is not a guarantee for steady income. Unless you persist with it for some time and make sure that income is becoming steady, it doesn't by default assure steady income. At that time, I was young. Like I said, immediately after my MBA, a couple of quick stints with companies. And I recognized that if I had to get married, if I had to, tell people around me, tell friends around me what I am doing, a brand on my profile, on my resume is useful. So it was very, very simple for me to make the call that, okay, entrepreneurship is not for me anymore. And I've quit that company and I've closed the company. Now, when I think of it, it is foolish in a way, but it is also the best thing at the time that I did it, right? I wanted steady income, and getting a job was the safest way in which I could get steady income. But then now when I am at Binder, this particular journey is completely unique. It's not like I have invested in the company a few $1 million and then saying, and then I am saying that I'm a co-founder. Here I am a co-founder because I am working on a vision. The original founder of the company is Mr. Satish, and we started working together 5-6 years ago when they had their first product in the market, which was a mobile first LMS. At that time, I was a customer of Binder. I was working as a professor in an institution that was a customer to Binder. And I said, you know what, you have a product that I don't really believe in, it wouldn't work. And then 5 years later, Satish comes back to me and says, okay, it's not a product that you like, but would you like to come with me and work with me and then build a product that you like to build? And I said, absolutely. And I took my opportunity, and he was quite benevolent in asking me to be the co-founder. Now, again, I have to say that co-founder is not a title that can be easily bestowed like that. It comes with its own weights. So I'm proud to say that I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a co-founder, but the burdens are very, very different. When people leave decision making to you, when people give you the responsibility to lead a vision, you have to make tough calls. And that's where I think I have learned several lessons. And yeah, just to quickly share some of those, I made a quick list for my own reference. Let me tell you what those are. Number one, um, I have recognized that entrepreneurship is more about mindset and less about money. See, after spending more than 10 years, 12 years as an employee, I don't know if you recognize, but taking approval for everything significant becomes part of your blood. You look up to your superiors, and you often ask your superiors, boss, can I do this? Boss, we have a conference happening there. I think it's useful for us to go to the conference. Can we go? Right? Or boss, I would actually like to implement a new strategy. May I implement the strategy? These are the pros and cons. The most unfortunate thing is we get into a submissive mode while being an employee, asking for suggestions, looking for guidance, looking for directions. And what I've recognized the moment I became an entrepreneur here, a co-founder here, is that there is no one who can give me guidance. I have to make those calls. So if I see that there is a need for going to a conference, it is that I have to justify for myself. I don't have anybody else on top of me to justify, or on top of me to say, Vinay, that's not very useful for you. So you make all the decisions yourself, and it's almost like shooting an arrow in the dark all the time. And that's why I say it's more about mindset than money. Money is probably one of the many resources that you deal with. Your time is a resource, your money is a resource, your people are a resource. The intelligence that your people bring, the ideas that your people bring are great resources as well. So the mindset, do you have the right mindset to make decisions untiringly? That's one lesson that I've learned. The second lesson that I've learned is the difference between fantasy and reality. To be honest with you, when you're an employee, you can afford to ask questions such as, what's my job description? What am I supposed to do? Is it a decision that I can make? I handed over the work to somebody else. It's with him now. It's with her now. I mailed, but they didn't respond. You know what? Now, those things work when you're an employee. Basically, I understood that all employees like to be employees because they live a fantasy life. Fantasy life. They get all the guidance. They simply do their bit, and they're not accountable for the outcomes. Whereas the moment you're an entrepreneur, you don't have an excuse. You can't say, for example, that I've asked someone to do something, but that person has not done it yet. What do I do? You're supposed to answer that question. You're accountable for the outcomes. You can't keep giving excuses. So you meet with reality, you meet with the troubles, you meet with the true natures of people. And then you say, okay, so that's how people are going to be. So I need to find a way in which to get things done, right? I've also noticed that my own views about spending have in general changed. There are ways in which I looked at certain forms of spending as expenditure. And what I've recognized over time is that not all forms of spending is expenditure, but some forms of spending can be investment, right? So for example, I go to an interview, I might be paying someone much higher salary than I pay to somebody else. And usually there are people who can debate on two sides. One category of people would say that is what the talent deserves. And two, there is a category of people that would say, you're not very wise, that's not the market rate, you unfortunately paid too much. What I have recognized is, you actually don't know why I'm making that investment. I invest in that person, maybe not because I expect the person to give me a great deliverable, but I expect that person to be an example for several other people in the company, right? So So there are different ways in which you rationalize your investments, and not all spending is expenditure all the time. I've also noticed over the last 1.5 years that there is very little difference between taking a good risk and looking absolutely stupid. Again, because you don't have a guidance on top. It's not like I said, you can consult a mentor, or you can have a team of advisors who are constantly giving you advice to move in the right direction all the time. It's not that you are insulated from the risk of exposure, or insulated from the risk of bad reputation, or insulated from the risk of looking stupid. And yeah, I made my share of mistakes. I'm absolutely stupid sometimes, and I go to my colleagues and I say, I'm absolutely sorry. I can be stupid too. I'm human too. So there is a very, very fine line of difference between what's accounted as a risk and what's accounted as stupid. I've also noted something very, very important. There is a difference in being involved to do something, taking ownership of the outcomes, to being on the standby and then making comments on how to do things. It's easy to be a commentator. You think about a typical IPL game, the commentators sound very knowledgeable, but the commentators are not the ones playing. It's the players, right, who are actually taking the heat off the ground, who are actually responding to fast bowling, or tough grass, all those things. So there's a very significant difference in being an entrepreneur and looking at problems, and standing on the sidelines and then saying how the entrepreneur should behave. And I can tell you that there are people who have presented themselves as executive coaches to me. And my advice to executive coaches so far was, don't think you can tell me how to decide. Tell me how I can reconcile with myself, because I know I end up making bad decisions every day. So one thing that I've understood as the biggest challenge of entrepreneurship is, you have to be okay with yourself, no matter if you make good decisions or bad decisions. End of the day, you have to sleep well, and you have to have the conviction that you thought, you involved, and you made decisions in the best interest. Some of them will come off and some of them won't come off. Don't ever imagine that you can put off the decision making, or delegate the decision making on critical aspects to somebody else. Those are some of the lessons that I've learned. So to just sum it up all, I think when I was in the academics, I did my PhDs, postdocs, and all of that. I had great fun, and I kept assuming that I was learning a lot. And I've recognized now that I was learning to know. To know, to teach, to talk is different. But then learning to do is a whole different game altogether. You can sit in an MBA class or a BBA class, and someone can tell you about management by walking around, right? And the theory simply says, once in a while, there's a physical office, you go and just walk around and talk to people. And that's the way you manage. That's learning to know, right? But then try and do that in an office, actually. And you would feel the difficulty, because the moment you walk, you get into a zone where your employees are working. Your employees probably get intimidated by your presence, and you have absolutely nothing to do with it, but that happens because you know that you can make a decision, and sometimes your words are taken too seriously, although you intended them to be a joke. So learning to do is very, very different from learning to know, right? So that's the biggest lesson that I've learned. So that's my journey in essence. Now, I would be happy if you guys want to take a look at my app, binder.com, like I said, just to connect back the dots. Currently, we have a website, binder.com, where you should see the provision to create an account for yourself. It's a very simple tool where you can bring your own content and then repackage the content the way you want and then share it with your friends. It's like a social media for learning. So you can try it out and then play with it and let me know if you like it and if you like to be involved. I can see that there are about 5+ minutes, so I will just take a look at the questions and then see if I can answer something. What are your life-changing learnings? I think I just answered that. Explanation about the company logo. Oh, well, that's a big story. I think I have to have my design guy explain that. And it should come out as a video in some time, so you will know that. How to get started and improve an online business. Okay, so if your business is anything to do with technology, I think you should explore something called as no code tools. Today, if you want to make a product, I don't think you need to write code anymore. There are several no code tools that are absolutely free to use. It's like drag and drop. It's like Canva. It's as simple as Instagram creating a post. All right. So there are many ways in which you can very quickly get started on an online business. The challenge with online businesses is not getting started. It's to sustain. It's to get attention and then to sustain. So that's a different question altogether. What's the first step for me to take at this moment of my life as a teenager to be entrepreneur? How to get ready to enter the industry? So my answer to that question will be, you are actually in the best time of your life to begin your journey as entrepreneurs, because you guys will be bubbling with ideas. And I think your generation need not be afraid to mention any idea. So if you think you have something unique, just go out and express and talk about it as much as possible. Be open for criticism, and that's it. I think there is nothing called entering the industry anymore. The moment you are in the college, day one, you have to consider that you are part of the industry also. The distance between education and industry is practically zero these days. Which is a better option, to start your business after working or start while doing my undergrad? It's like what who's that guy? Warren Buffett says, right? The best time to invest was yesterday. East. Deepest regrets in entrepreneurial journey. I wouldn't say deepest regret yet, because if you are regretting, I don't think you can be entrepreneur. But like I said, the biggest challenge is to sleep well. And like I said, there will be days where you come across decisions that you have made that will hurt you very badly. And then you may have to be just okay, take the lessons and move forward. Right. So think about scenarios where you hire someone because they have extremely good potential, but then you have to fire them because unfortunately they end up becoming a problem in the team. You're trying to build a team. You're not bringing one person. So decisions like those, ethical dilemmas, are part of everyday life, and dealing with ethical dilemmas every day is not great fun. I can tell you, decision making is the most tiring activity of being an entrepreneur. Is it mandatory to opt a business degree to do business? Well, my answer is simple. If someone were to ask me if my PhD helped or if my postdoc helped, I think I would say no. I've come across better business guys who have just cleared SSC or even failed SSC and are good at doing business. I think what an educational institution has given me is an exposure to operate in a social environment where you have support of your friends, support of your teachers to guide you. But I don't think the degree has anything to do with that kind of intelligence. You can be an engineer and then do beauty business also, or you can study beauty and get into hotel management. No one stops these days. So yeah, like I said, some of my opinions can be unpopular. I don't overrate education as a degree. Degrees are cheap. You can get degrees anywhere you want. What you should get from an educational institution is really the support to nurture your ideas and then put them into a shape. I see many people asking me questions about, will Geetam support me? I think Geetam has a great environment. You have to ask someone else about the specific questions. I am not from Geetam anymore. How can I contact you, sir? Do you have a LinkedIn account? So I am putting my link to the LinkedIn account in the chat, and maybe we can connect there. I would be happy to connect with you guys and discuss your ideas. Everyone. Okay, so my LinkedIn profile link is already in the chat. So whoever wants to connect can happily connect. Can a person be entrepreneur and an employee in another company at the same time? Well, Nidhishri, the answer to that is theoretically yes. You can be doing your business and then you can also be working somewhere. But I can tell you that it is not a very great idea. I mean, one of the compromises that you have to make is you have to shed every other part of you if you want to be an entrepreneur. I can do 100 different things if I want today, but it is important to have focus on that one goal that you want to achieve. Remember the framework that I mentioned. The deeper and the bigger that you connect with your purpose, the better off you will be identified as an entrepreneur. So if you say that you will split your attention between being an employee and then being an entrepreneur, I don't think you're in a good state of affairs. That probably gives you steady income, but it's not an idea that I can really appreciate. The app name, okay, so the app name or the website, if you're asking about my business, I have put that also in the chat. It's binder.com. So that's Binder. What will be your thoughts before taking decision, or how do you analyze your decision? Boyapati Sai Srinitya. Okay, so that's another thing, right? So every decision comes with the challenge. You won't have all the information necessary to make decisions, but with whatever information you have to be convinced that you're making the best. Typically, I narrow it down to two alternatives and I choose one based on whatever I am doing, whether that is good for all the people. It's not finances, by the way. Finances are probably the last priority that we will be looking at. It's people. For example, yesterday I was talking to a girl who is suffering from spinal muscular atrophy, and she was rejected at several interviews because most companies don't understand how to accommodate her in their team. The problem that this girl has is that she gets tired very often. So if she works for 15 minutes, she has to take rest for almost 2 hours. Now, with a person like that, most companies are not sure if they can give her a job as an interview. Now, the decision that I had to make when I was interviewing with her was, how do I accommodate this kind of a person? It's a challenge, but the decision is, if I have to take that person, and that's the bias, right? The bias is to take the person. How do I accommodate the person? So that's what we think about. It's not really the money or the productivity. Sometimes you think about the parameters that are more important. How do you go about making or building a team? Yeah, we can spend probably an entire academic year discussing that, but I think you will know when you meet that someone who can be your excellent team player. Hardest times in being an entrepreneurship, there is nothing called hardest. Every day is unique. Every day presents a different challenge, and you just have to move on. Probably being persistent with your goal is the biggest challenge. And yeah, if you're persistent, I think everything else should fall in place. I mean, the thing about entrepreneurship is you can't take failure for an answer. If you're failing, there is just a lesson and you have to find out what is the next best way to take it and move forward. So I don't think there are hardest times. Every day is hard or small. I mean, simple, depending on how you approach it. But you just have to persist and move on. At what age better to start a business? I'm not sure, Yashwant, if you have been listening. You should have started a business maybe 10 years ago. Start it at least today. You don't know. Utej has put a message saying, I don't think so because Amazon company is not allowing employees to have side income. Well, moonlighting is legal in some countries. Theoretically, that's what the term is, moonlighting. You can be doing 2 jobs, or you can have one business and then one part-time job. It's called moonlighting. Some countries and some companies are okay with it. Some companies are not. But like I said, in principle, I am not greatly in favor of moonlighting, because as it is difficult to pull off one goal. I mean, why split the attention and increase chances of failure, right? So that's about it. Now, I'm not sure how to close this session. Is there someone to take over and then say close, or can we simply close? Maybe we can simply close. Fine then, guys, thank you. I appreciate your patience in attending the session. I see that one of you has raised a hand. Gopal, do you want to talk? you can talk now. Um, cool. I think that's it. Leela, so whoever wants to talk, I can see that you're raising hands if you want to talk. You just have to unmute yourself and talk.
Hello.
Yes, Manorad.
It's actually you got a question right, asking someone asking you that he has a cybersecurity and blockchain idea.
Correct.
Yeah, I wanna link with him. Like I wanna work with him.
So you want to know who that person is?
Yeah.
Let me see if I have the name. I'm not sure if the person also was looking at. So that's an anonymous attendee. So I don't know who the person is.
Yeah. Is that you? Please just raise your hand.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
whoever that is who wants to talk about cybersecurity, I think you have Manorad who wants to join you. It's a very interesting space to operate in. There are abundant opportunities happening space. Crypto, I think, would be heavily invested in. So,
Hello, sir.
yes, Shiva.
Sir, my name is Gangana Shepasa, sir.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm very interested to talk with Manorat and work with him.
Oh, sure.